I've got no idea how you pronounce his name, but it's another One Piece creator who made a video talking about the Robin thing, right? And basically saying that Saul should have been dead. And a bunch of people got really, really mad, right? So this is right here. We all know I hate this guy with the hatred, whatever that is, but calling 1133 cheap, spits on all Oda worked for this payoff. He spits on Robin's suffering, her happiness, her life, but most importantly, this hates the message of One Piece, right? And then they had responses. This went back and forth for a long time, creates a 22-minute analysis. By the way, I haven't seen this video, and I'm not going to watch this video because I want to talk about this very, very big picture-wise, because there is a problem with the One Piece community. I have felt it. So let's talk about it. Creates a 22-minute analysis video on why he thinks it's bad writing using logic and arguments. One Piece fans, ignores all arguments, hates the message of One Piece. This J clip is going to be the eternally used by me anytime I see any dumb who can't take One Piece criticisms on this app. Let's watch this clip. This clip we can watch real quick.
When it comes to having criticism of the story and criticism of Wano, the community does not like it. The community, I would argue, cannot handle criticism well. They can't handle criticism of Oda. Even though Oda is top 5 mangaka of all time, maybe the best, I would say Togashi and maybe Toriyama and some others. But when it comes to giving my authentic opinion and my criticisms on the story, and a lot of content creators can vouch for this, there's a lot of things that we may not like, but we cannot say because...
Let me tell you right now, I have never held back on criticism because I'm not a One Piece centric creator. I do a lot of One Piece, but One Piece is not my main thing. I just say what I think.
Any criticism of One Piece, any criticism of Oda, whether valid or not, is met with vitriol. And you are alienated and you'll eventually be blackballed. That's normally how it works here. When it comes to having criticism.
Okay, so I do think this is true. And I think this is very, very true in the sense that a lot of like One Piece centric creators probably don't talk about certain things because of this. Why do I say this? Because a lot of things that I've said that are even very mild criticisms, people get very, very angry about. This is not the majority. Of course it's not. But there are some people who take even like the most minute of criticisms against One Piece as almost personal insults against Oda and against the legacy of One Piece, and almost as if you are trying to like basically poke holes in something that is like, I don't know, sacred or something, right? The reason I want to talk about this a little bit is that I don't agree with this, by the way. Just so we're clear, I think there is a problem with One Piece and deaths. I've talked about this before. A lot of the time, I do feel like Oda wants his cake and to eat it too. You know, I do think that's true. Pell is obviously the most egregious example. In Wano with the scabbards, I think that was another case where Oda basically did a little bit of emotional manipulation, if you will. There are a few more instances that I'm probably forgetting, but it is true. Like, Oda does sometimes play up things to imply that there will be permanent consequences. They're not permanent consequences. However, with Robin, I disagree with this instance in particular, not because I'm a Robin stan, but rather because Saul is meant to be like, he's meant to be like that friend that the rest of the crew will return to. In the same way that Laboon is like a friend waiting for Brook, Luffy's probably going to meet up with Shanks, yada yada, right? Robin has experienced loss. She lost her mother, and she lost her entire community. Everyone around Robin is dead. Saul is supposed to be that one dude who survived. Satellites, another one. Exactly. So the entire satellite thing, I mentioned that in the main Egghead video as well. The entire satellite thing is also the same thing. It was played up for this whole mystery angle, and then, wow, one of them gets like shot point blank, and it's a whole surprise. Eventually, nothing matters. That's beside the point, because that's just one thing. To give you more things to attack me about. I think hockey is bad and boring. Said this many times before. I think the devil fruits are infinitely more interesting. What else do I not like? Oda's world building sometimes is also a little bit inconsistent in the sense that the One Piece world is massive and Oda's world building is incredible. But sometimes, because of the things he introduces and the way he shapes the narrative around certain figures, it takes this world that Oda has built and squeezed it into 3 characters that have somehow managed to cross paths for seemingly like absurd reasons. How do I phrase it? Because that doesn't even make sense. Basically what I mean is that there are thousands of things, thousands of places, but for some reason a lot of these extremely important bits of like characterization and important characters seem to cross paths at perfect times, right? And sometimes it feels like the world is a lot smaller than Oda has made it out to be. And that sometimes feels jarring. The reason I want to talk about all of this and give bad takes out for myself is because Oda is just a dude. And the reason why a lot of people, and again, I haven't seen a lot of content from this guy, but I know of him. I've seen his content on YouTube before. I just don't watch a lot of One Piece creators because I want my takes to be my own. So I don't really want to, you know, pollute my thoughts with someone else's opinions. Oda is just a dude. The reason why we talk about negatives more often than positives is because we would be glazing One Piece 24/7. If you go back and watch like my older videos, it might feel like I am skewing more towards negatives in the videos I create. But the videos got longer, right? And the reason for that is because instead of spending 2 hours saying I like this, I just went in with the default assumption that I have watched 700 episodes of this thing. I like it. Like, obviously I like it. I am here. I am making YouTube videos on a series I've spent hundreds of hours of watching. So instead of focusing on everything well, obviously I still talk about things I like and how they work in the grander narrative, but it's easier to talk about things that are like, maybe you don't really jive with, right? And I think that is true for every single One Piece creator. And it's so weird to me that instead of people basically taking the criticism on board and discussing it for what it is, people try defending something, and sometimes it genuinely feels like they don't even agree with defending it. They're just defending it out of principle. And that's what's really weird to me. It's like these ad hominem attacks, basically. Like, no, the reason why you've made this video and the reason why you have a One Piece channel is because it's just like the biggest anime, manga, whatever. And the only thing you're doing is farming out hate, right? As if that's very sustainable. It very much bothers me because when I talk about my favorite stories, I want to talk about its faults in the hopes that it gets better. That's usually what I do. Otherwise, I feel like every single creator would be basically saying the same thing. It's like, this is good, this is good, this is good. I think it's much more interesting to talk about the things that you don't like in the things you like. And that is true for everything, not just entertainment. Because I do think One Piece is a special case. I am a World of Warcraft player. And the thing I saw with World of Warcraft is there were a number of people who raised issues with the game. And then like the rest of the community was very defensive. They said, no, it's fine. They're trying new things. They're doing this, blah, 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 blah. And then the people who had problems with the game, they left. And then more people raised the problems. And again, it was very, very defensive. What do we call that? We call that survivorship bias. The people who didn't like the game just left, right? And at a certain point, the culture of the game shifted towards, if you're going to raise critique, the rest of the already like entrenched community. And one big thing here is World of Warcraft is like a 20-year-old game. One Piece is a 20-year-old anime. People have years and years of their time invested, right? So you create a culture around defending everything, regardless of what the context is, because we don't want critique, we don't want things to change, period. So anyone who ever wanted to, because what does critique do? It's meant to improve the thing. Like if you find a plot hole, you want to talk about the plot hole so that the plot hole is not there, right? It's the same thing with a video game. You find a problem, you want to fix the problem. But if everyone is just saying, no, that's not it, ignore this, you create a culture of everything is fine, don't look up, you know, you just brush aside all real issues. You don't want that. And with One Piece, I do think there's a degree of that. Because people have spent so long following it, they don't want to see the problems. What do you mean I've been following this story for 18 years? What do you mean this new arc might be bad? What do you mean? My favorite story, the one that has all of these things going for it, has problems? And I like it? No, surely you must be wrong. There is no problem with the story. Of course there's not. Always keep an eye out for the things that you like. Always. Why are gacha games the most successful communities? Because they are literally financially invested in people not raising problems. They have a financial investment in the game continuing to succeed. Put on your blinders and enjoy the experience. It's bad. It's very, very bad. Oh, the Gear 5 thing. I think, by the way, I think my Gear 5 reveal video, not like the reaction, but the main channel video, I think in terms of dislike ratio, that is still my most disliked video on the channel. And the reason why it's the most disliked video is because I said I don't like Luffy's devil fruit going from the Gum Gum fruit to the mythical zone. And let me be clear, my thoughts have not changed. I still hold this opinion. I love Gear 5, I love the reveal, I love everything about Gear 5, with the exception of the fact that Luffy's devil fruit was renamed. And I said, it is a retcon. Why do I say it's a retcon? Because there is already a retcon with Katakuri's devil fruit. Why do I think Oda retconned it, presumably? Is, I think, because he introduced the green blood thing with the Seraphims and they could replicate Parametheas. That's why I think Luffy's devil fruit went from a Paramethea to a zone, so that it can't be copied. That's what I think. Am I wrong? Am I correct? I don't know. I just don't like it. I think it's unnecessary. Simple as that. There might be foreshadowing, there might be whatever. I just don't like it. On a personal level. And it doesn't need to be valid criticism. That's like another thing. Let's talk about this as well. So let's talk about the Saul thing. Even though I disagree with this, because again, I think Saul is supposed to be like Robin's home to return to, right? The character who gives her closure, the character who basically tells her that it's alright, and it's basically like a reward for her, for living, you know? So I disagree with this. But I think you can definitely have this opinion, because this is a problem with One Piece. Absolutely. And there's like if there is one place in One Piece where you can trust deaths, it's flashbacks. And then Saul being pulled out of that flashback and turning out to be alive. I can totally sympathize with a person not liking this. Absolutely. If you don't like the fact that Saul is alive, perfectly valid. Regardless of everything I said and regardless of my personal disagreement, I think it is an absolutely valid criticism. 100%. And every person who criticized the ending of Wano, every single person who criticized like the way Yamato was introduced and then suddenly written out, all of that, perfectly valid criticism. Absolutely. Anything that is based in the story and is not like a weird headcanon, I am totally fine with. This is not based in headcanon. This is literally saying that you just didn't like the way a pseudo death was handled. People who are coming up with like completely external arguments, that's like a whole separate can of worms, but with this, I think it's ridiculous that he is getting so much hate. And if you want to talk to him personally, apparently he's doing like a stream on Monday. So you can go and talk to him. Oda's not perfect. I agree with all the fake out deaths are a problem. I also thought Wano was dragged out way too long. Many characters on different branches. Still my favorite manga. Exactly. Absolutely, exactly. Fake death to me have the element of shock value. Saul being alive has no shock value to me. Let's talk about shock value for a second, because that's, I think, another big thing with One Piece. So, the reason why I personally despise fake deaths is, number one, because it disrespects the audience. It baits you into feeling an emotional response that is not there. It is cheap. It is the clearest meaning of cheap. Pell's sacrifice means nothing. It is cheap writing. You can give all the excuses, whatever. It's bad writing. Period. It's cheap. There was no moment of sacrifice. All of that, oh no, Pell, meaningless. It's bad. Shouldn't do that. And the reason why I hate it is because it devalues the rest of the story. Because the next time we see a person shot in the face, he might even have a mask, and he might be called Vegapunk, you're gonna start doubting the story. The entire story has been devalued by a fake death. Because if there is one fake death, what about the next real death? Is that one real? And suddenly, instead of, you see a death happen right in front of you, and the first thing is, oh my god, they are dead. You don't even take that in. The first question you ask is, are they dead? You shouldn't be thinking that. Imagine the Red Wedding, but the first question in your mind is, are they dead? Like, what do you mean? Of course that shouldn't be the way you think. There is, like, you shouldn't start poking holes in everything. That's like, by the way, a whole separate side of One Piece where there are people who poke holes in everything. And those, I would say, are completely, like, it's not valid criticism. Like, wow, Luffy met Shanks, Luffy is Joy Boy. How did that happen? Out of all the pirates Shanks could have met, like, it's a story. Relax. Relax. 2 characters met, it's fine. When you have 50 characters suddenly meet under mysterious circumstances, that's where you can start poking holes. You shouldn't poke holes in everything. Of course not. Do you think Saul surviving was planned? I'm not sure. I'm not sure. There is a pattern with the One Piece crew that everyone has a home to return to. Every single Straw Hat has something. Robin didn't have anything. So I do think there is a chance that Oda did at least think about Saul surviving, because we didn't see a death. We saw him frozen, and clearly Aokiji was introduced as he wasn't evil. Like, there was ambiguity around Aokiji and what he does. There are many times where he could have caught the Straw Hats. He could have killed Robin point blank. He didn't. So Aokiji was always a wild card, right? And if you reveal the fact that he's alive, that is not not Aokiji, but like Saul. The Saul is alive. It doesn't seem like a stretch to me at all. I don't necessarily mind Gear 5 powers. I really don't like the design. My favorite thing about the Gear 5 design is just that it's Luffy. Because, like, I think that's, like, one of the things that work for me with, like, the God Fruit, right? When you picture a god, it's a god. But Luffy is just Luffy. And I think that is, like, a small thing that really, really... It's perfect with the One Piece story. Whereas... Do I want to start all of this again? I've talked about it in the Egghead video. So if you want to hear my thoughts on why I don't like the God Fruit, just watch the Egghead video on the main channel. It's basically because I think everyone should be able to be Nika. It seems weird to me that there is only one person who could be the liberator. It's just odd. Because the whole thing is about people hoping for a savior. It's not cool that there is just one savior. Especially because there's also the tragic undertone that, like, Kuma hoped for a savior and he never arrived. So there's also, like, a dark undertone to all of that. I like the Saw Robin thing mainly because we do need more emotional moments with the later joint Straw Hats. Yes, also that. There was someone farming hate and wishing harm upon Oda called Jello Apocalypse, who made a clickbait video full of wrong facts about the plot. I think I've seen that video floating around. I haven't seen it. I think I've seen people mention the video, but I'm not sure about it myself, so I can't speak to that. Like, at the end of the day, this is entertainment, and unless you're saying something that is, like, objectively wrong, you can criticize whatever you want. Obviously, criticism should be based in the story you are talking about. You shouldn't be saying... Let's not do that. I'm not going to mention that, but the story should obviously take front stage before you start saying Luffy should... Like, Zoro should have died. Luffy should have died, or something, because of some weird reason, number 545. It should be based in the story itself. Pedro is another one, yeah. Do you think Kid is still alive? Keep in mind, he has the Fishman race in his crew, the short girl. It would be weird, I think, if he survives, because of how many times, like, he's gotten into trouble, and then Shanks clearly saw that he was up to no good. I think he should be dead. If he's alive, I don't think I would necessarily be surprised, but I think he should be dead. Like, purely thinking about how Shanks would handle someone threatening his crew. So, he should be dead, in my mind. Otherwise, it kind of devalues Shanks, which is bad. Because, like, he threatened Shanks' crew and he literally saw in his future memories that he will actually hurt people. Why would he ever give him another chance? Sometimes the no death rule is not for the audience, but for the everybody lives vibe. Some characters deserve their loved ones to be alive, not always, but I like the positivity of it. I mean, One Piece... One thing that I find very, very weird is that people say, like, One Piece is not meant to be tragic. And I'm like, are you reading the same story? Every single one of these... Like, obviously, the overarching narrative of One Piece is of exploration, is of joy, is of liberation, and is of freedom. But that came at the cost of a lot. Literally every single one of the crewmates has lost their dearest people. Every single one. So I find it really weird that people are like, why did you expect someone to be dead? This is not a tragedy. Of course it's a tragedy. Every single one of these characters has experienced tragedy. But it is a balancing act. It absolutely is a balancing act. There's the people who despise Zuko being related to Roku, Sozan and Aang, kind of. It's always like, that's another thing. How do you plan? There needs to be some sort of weird coincidences for the story to work, you know? And that's what I mean. Like, if you have a couple of characters, usually it's fine. If you have 50, that's weird. And then you need to start introducing some kind of, like, fate shenanigans. You called Zoro sexist? That doesn't even make sense. Zoro's entire... You know what? You know what? Let's not even think about it. I think Zoro should have died instead of Kuina. That's just me, though. That's diabolical. That is absolutely diabolical. I've said this before. What I want with Zoro's story is for him to have a Tale of Iroh moment. I said it in my Zoro video, which, by the way, the video didn't do well, but it's still one of my favorite videos I've ever made. I made a video about Zoro, specifically, literally just about Zoro. And basically, my whole thesis statement is that I would absolutely love if Zoro got a moment where once he becomes the strongest in the world, he will tell the world of Kuina, because he never beat her. So, by the laws of power scaling, he's not the strongest. You know? And then we could have a moment where he sits at her grave and says, if only I could have protected you. And then I would probably cry, because it would be... Now that would hit hard. If after all this time, the ultimate struggler just sits at his friend's grave and is sorry. And that's it. That's the scene. He just sits there and apologizes that he couldn't protect her. Now that would be cinema. That's what I would write. But that's mainly just because it's Avatar. I see Oda as a kid with a toy box. He doesn't want to kill off his toys because he wants to be able to play with them later just in case. Yes, and I think that's like at a certain point you should start writing people out. Kid being dead also fits pretty well with the very first scene he appears in after entering the new world. He's got a pirate crew captive and ruthlessly kills them while talking about going to a part of the world they're not ready for. He was about to attack Elbaf and was trying to go through Shanks' friends to get there. I think, personally, he should be dead. If he's not, it's weird in terms of what Shanks is doing, in terms of Shanks' values, in terms of Shanks protecting his territory. It's just a bit weird. And, like, he has been annihilated so many times that, like, at a certain point, his karma has to catch up. Oh, by the way, you mentioned something that I didn't think about. When I said about the, like, things happening, like, that are too convenient, I think we have seen that with travel time. When people are teleporting around the world of One Piece, and sort of your logic breaks a little bit, because people are suddenly on one island, then they're on another island, yada yada yada. That's one example of what I mean. When Oda has done this extensive world building of like the 4 seas, there's the red line in between, you need to cross it, yada yada yada, and suddenly people are just like whooshing around, that's when things get a little bit weird. It hasn't been like a huge problem, but there are a few times where like, how did Shanks... It's happened a few times. Not saying it's not tragedy, but in my opinion, the story is about joy, and some deaths would suck the joy out, or some deaths are there to emphasize finding joy regardless of darkness. Exactly. And I think, like, that's why I disagree with this particular instance. What you say fits exactly why I disagree with the Saul statement that Saul should be dead. Because I believe that him living is exactly what creates even more contrast for Robin's tragedy. If Saul wasn't alive, we couldn't have gotten that whiplash moment of Robin standing on the ledge. And that's what it does, in my opinion. Because Robin lost everyone. So having this one touch point that actually loops back to that tragedy is why I think Saul should have survived. So I have no problems with Saul surviving on a personal level. The way I read Robin's character, Saul's survival makes it even more sad for me. But again, if you think it's a fake out death and you don't like it, I fully understand it. Absolutely. And I would never be angry about that. Because there are other characters who I think should be dead. How do you feel about the fact that Oda never committed to romantic relationships between even secondary characters? I mean, if he doesn't like writing romance, it's fine. There's like that funny thing. I guess this is like light spoilers for Attack on Titan. Eren and Mikasa were supposed to kiss, but Isayama was too awkward to draw it. So it never happened. So obviously I do think the author, like how they think about the world, how they think about the characters will be reflected in the story. So if he doesn't want to write any romance, fine by me. I don't care. And by the way, I think it's also probably good in terms of people not starting like weird. Like this character should end up with this character. Because I do think if people start shipping like Luffy and Nami, for example, it would be like a little bit odd. Not that they don't do it anyway, of course. But I mean, like, if they started insisting that it's an actual thing in the story, instead of everyone just being very close friends. Because people would start seeing, like, certain interactions as weird. It happened with the live-action version. When Nami and Zoro were talking, people literally thought it was supposed to be romantic when it was just 2 people talking. So it happened. No one struggles navigating... Funny you mentioned that. I do think that's another thing that Oda has done a little bit weirdly. There was so much talk about the new world being like absurdly difficult to traverse. We haven't seen much of that. And that's like, by the way, one of my biggest criticisms in terms of all of One Piece, why is there so little pirate stuff in terms of sailing the seas in a pirate story? We still haven't seen a pirate fleet fight a pirate fleet. We still have not seen that. Every single fight happens on land in a pirate story. Why? But yes, the fact that there are characters who are just sailing around without much issue, that is a bit odd, yes. In terms of traversing the new world, like how much we've heard that is dangerous, that is a bit of an odd thing. What's your opinion on people randomly picking things and saying it was Nika foreshadowing? I do think there is a weird amount of insistence that Oda has foreshadowed everything, when clearly that's not the case. Like, this is not even a point you could debate. If you look at Oda interviews and how much he has changed, how much he has literally said he has changed the story, obviously there will be like important story beats that are foreshadowing. But I do think like the meme that Oda foreshadows everything, it's a meme for a reason. One of the things that I feel like makes Oda an incredible writer is the fact that he has added all of these things. I think there are a lot of people who consider planning something out good writing. No, that just means you planned it out. If you can add something in the middle of a story, and most people can't argue whether or not it's added or not, that's what a good writer is. And Oda literally added the entire worst generation. I do think people pick apart things that are clearly not foreshadowing and say they are foreshadowing, and they use it sometimes to support their own argument, which is like circular logic, which doesn't even make sense. But I don't care about it. I'm gonna be real. I don't care. I overanalyze everything, but I always overanalyze everything with the assumption that no one should take me seriously. That's why using like the George R.R. Martin statements of architects and gardeners, I just use that everywhere now. I use that literally everywhere. Whenever people talk about foreshadowing or he planned it all along, both of these things are indicative of good writing. You can be an incredible writer and make up everything on the spot. And you can be an incredible writer who literally knows every single story beat before you ever put pen to paper. And both of these things are incredibly respectable. And no one should ever say you made it up and it's like, if you made it up and it's bad, you should say it's bad. But you can also plan something and be bad. Very simple. I think he knows like the backbone of the story and where it's gonna go. But I think considering like how massive the series is now and how much it exploded, I think he is freestyling. And I think he has big moments where he gets a new idea and then he interweaves this idea. Joy Boy. Joy Boy appears in Fishman Island. Rest of post time skip interweaves Joy Boy all throughout. I think there are big points where Oda plans out an entire thing and then he really, really gets going. But I think that's one of Oda's biggest strengths. The fact that it's not just like a predefined thing. And that's good. That's good. I want people to realize, totally fine to criticize Wano. I think Wano had a lot of structural issues. And the more I think back to Wano, the more I agree with a lot of the criticism that I thought about initially. Basically, I think you should think about One Piece once you've gotten through the arc. Because I do think I'm looking at Wano still with like rose-tinted glasses. Because when I think about the Roger flashback, it was peak fiction. But there are other things in the Wano arc that is kind of like meandering and a bit weird that don't really do anything. It's fine. Not even fine. It's good to criticize the things you don't like. And it's not even good. By criticizing the things you don't like, you will, like, the fact that I have made a 50-60 video series on Attack on Titan, I spent 15 minutes trying to deconstruct a plot hole, that makes me appreciate the rest of the story orders of magnitude more. One last thing I'll mention about One Piece.